Hello everyone, welcome to Hexa IAS. So now we are going to start with the Sociological Thinker, chapter 4 of paper 1 for Sociology Optional. Now, starting with this particular chapter makes sense, starting of the syllabus with this particular chapter, as after studying all these thinkers, you'll be able to understand the perspective of different ideology of different thinkers. So the first one we'll start with Karl Marx. Now, if you look at the syllabus part, there are only 4 sub-parts are given: historical materialism, modes of production, alienation, and class struggle. But do not get distracted by this, that Karl Marx is such a small topic, there are only 4 subtopics. This is going to take a while. And understanding Karl Marx is not just important from the perspective of this particular chapter, but also for understanding the Marxism. And when we will doing the further chapters like the politics and society, religion and society changes, and when we will going to the paper 2 where we look at the Indian society, there also Marxist perspective will play an important role. So understanding the Marxist perspective, understanding this Karl Marx becomes really crucial for your preparation of Sociology Optional. So now let's start with the syllabus part. Now, if I have to, just a second, so before jumping onto these topics, first thing we need to do, or rather first thing that will make sense to do, is look at the summary of Karl Marx's perspective. Look, one thing we need to understand from the beginning itself for Karl Marx is that all the writings of Karl Marx are intertwined, they are interlinked. If we try to understand one topic, we need to understand the other topic as well. And it's a little bit of can't say really difficult or tough, it's complicated to understand because it's intertwined. So it'll serve us if we'll start with the summary of the Karl Marx's perspective, right? So let's start with the summary of Karl Marx sociological perspective. The first point we need to understand here is, from the Karl Marx's perspective, is of flux and change in society. Flux and change in society. So as per Marxist perspective, society continuously change. Society continuously changes. And society is not stable. So that's the first thing we need to understand about Karl Marx's perspective, that society keeps on changing. What Karl Marx says about this change is that it's not random, rather it's a orderly change. And this orderly change can be understood systematically. How we will understand, like, what does Karl Marx means when he says we can understand the society systematically? That is going to be the subject matter of the the whole thing of this thinker, of the complete thinker. So that is the first point that we need to keep in mind while studying the Karl Marx, that society changes and this change is a systematic change. Second thing we need to understand about Karl Marx is economic determinism. What does that mean? It means that social change lies in economic relationship. Social change lies in economic relationship. What does that mean? The complete social structure, the complete social structure will be shaped by how people earn their livelihood. How people earn their livelihood. Look, this could be understood from very basic perspective, even if you are not studying Karl Marx. Think of a agricultural society and think of a industrial society. There are going to be differences between these two societies. But what Karl Marx is trying to say here is this: the complete social structure is dependent upon the economic relationship. Till this point, we have learnt two things. Society changes continuously. And if we are saying that it's the economic relationship that shapes the structure of a society, it simply also means change in this economic relationship, change in the way people earn their livelihood is going to change the social structure of a society. We can be pretty much clear for this point up till this discussion. Now, another thing that we need to understand from Karl Marx's perspective is the concept of infrastructure and superstructure. Infrastructure and superstructure. Now, infrastructure is nothing but economic base. Infrastructure is nothing but economic base. What does that mean? Simple language can think of this as money. Can think of this as money. We'll go into detail when we're discussing it further, but now till this point just consider as a money. Now, according to this concept of Karl Marx, infrastructure governs superstructure. Money will decide the legal aspect of society, the religious aspect of society, the political aspect of society. So everything will be decided by money. This is the rough idea about infrastructure and superstructure. We'll go into the detail when we'll be moving forward with the topics. Right? Next thing that we need to understand is conflict theory of Karl Marx. Conflict theory of Karl Marx. Now, okay. According to Karl Marx, if we divide the history, let's say this is the point from where humankind started, sapiens started, and till today, Karl Marx divide history into different phases, and these different phases are decided by something called mode of production. What is mode of production? How it is related? We will discuss it. Just for now, understand that Karl Marx divides history into phases. There are four phases that Karl Marx talks about. The first one was primitive communism, and there have been other ancient, and then feudal, and then capitalism, and the final one will be communism. The final one will be communism. According to Karl Marx, there were no social classes here, and there will be no social classes. This is the future event that he predicted. According to him, communism is eventuality. Communism is eventuality. But in all these other phases of history or other modes of production, there has been social classes. Let's try to understand it from. We'll go into what were the classes in these phases as well. Let's look at the current phase, which is capitalism phase. Right? So, the whole mankind is divided into two different portions. And if I have to represent it correctly, it will be something like this. A very tiny portion of the whole population are haves, and a major chunk is have-nots. Karl Marx called them bourgeois. And them as proletariat. Who are they? Who have capital. For simplistic term, let's call them business owners. Let's call them business owners. For simplistic understanding, they have labor, skill. What they do? They sell their labor to business owners. What they get? They get wages in return. Right? Now, tell me this thing. Workers, business owners. Wages, amount of work. What would a worker want? Higher wage, less amount of work. What would a businessman want to do? Lower wage, higher amount of work, more work to be done. As there is a debate going on, the chief of L&T recently said that he won't be able to work on Sunday. Of course he wants to. It will make him money, not the workers. So there is inherent contradiction, and this will lead to conflict between them. Up to this point, just understand this much. When we will be moving forward, these things becomes more clear. Look, you have to understand that you cannot explain or sort of do the whole Karl Marx in few points. We need just try to have some idea. The only motive of giving this summary is that you have some idea about Karl Marx. So when we'll be going deeper into the topics, you'll have certain background about Karl Marx. Another point that we need to understand here is impact of economic structure on thought. Impact of economic structure on thought. What Karl Marx says is, individual thinking and attitude is shaped by their participation in economic process. If we consider economic process just as two different classes as business owners and labor class, right? So we can all imagine the thought process, the belief of these two classes will be different. So that's what Karl Marx wanted to say, that individual thinking and attitude is shaped by their participation in economic process. Now I'll just wrap up this summary thing up to this point only. Quickly revise what we have done. Now, so first thing we looked at is continuous change in society, not stable. This change is not random, it's orderly, hence it can be studied systematically. Then we looked at economic determinism, that social change lies in economic relationship. I think we understood it quite well. Then infrastructure and superstructure, how infrastructure governs the superstructure. Conflict theory, two classes, contradictory interest, hence conflict between them. And then we looked at impact of economic structure on thought. Now we are going to start with one of the topic of Karl Marx. So ladies and gentlemen, get ready with your notebooks and pen and focus completely 100% here on screen now. Keep on taking notes. You'll have everything you need for your preparation. Just need to follow this, take down the notes. It will be sufficient for your UPSC preparation. Now, we are going to start with this topic called mode of production. Let's begin. Now, we need to understand one thing, that Karl Marx's literature has a specific vocab. Certain phrases mean certain things, which can be confusing if you just try to go to understand the literal meaning of the words. But if we understand the meaning of each of these words or these phrases, it will be pretty easy for us to understand the whole concept, and it will flow, like it'll go into a flow. Once we'll start with one thing, and then it will culminate into another, that will culminate into another, and finally we reach to the topic which we need to understand. So the name of the topic is mode of production, but we'll start with something called means of production. We'll start with something called means of production. Now, what is this means of production? Means of production means nothing. It's pretty simple. It's the things that are used for production. So what is means of production? Things that are used for production, such as land, raw material, technology, etc. Basic means of production, things that are needed to produce, needed for production. Now, once you have understood means of production, now we are going to move to the second term. The second term is forces of production. The second term is forces of production. we are going to denote it as FOP. Now, what is the meaning of forces of production? Forces of production means ways in which material goods are produced. Simple. Ways in which material goods are produced. Now, how will this production will happen? In simplistic way, we'll take something from nature, we'll apply human labor on that something natural, and it will become a new product. So that is how production takes place. Take anything, even the production of services is done in this manner only. Something from natural resource is taken and then human labor is applied on it, and it will turn into something product or services. So when I'm saying ways in which, so what are the things that are involved in these ways? First is technological advancements. So FOP includes technological advancement will include development and improvement in tools, machinery, technology used in production. Then is energy sources. That is utilization of natural resources to power production process. We'll use natural resources to produce power to enhance the production process. Then is education and skill, very important. That's why we are all here, to enhance the productivity. And what it will do? It will enhance the productivity and efficiency, right? And then changes in labor process. That is how we are organizing the whole labor force to increase output and to reduce cost. There are ways how we are going to use the labor that will increase output and reduce cost. So this is what FOP includes. Now, from here, just note this point. We take something from nature. Look at this. We take something from nature. We apply human labor. What we do? We take something from nature. We apply human labor. Now, tell me one thing. What was means of production? Things used for production. So in a way, can I say that it is the resources we are taking from nature? Is what means of production is? When I apply labor power on it, can't I say that this can also be the definition of forces of production? Yes. Means of production plus labor power is also forces of production. Now we need to clarify some more terms here within this so that we do not get confused in the future course. What does the term labor power means? Labor power is capacity or potential to do work which increases the value of product, which increases the value of a product. Few things we need to understand here. A, it's the capacity and potential. It's not applied, right? So it's the capacity or potential to do work which increases the value of a product. So when we say FOP is the way in which things are produced, this capacity or potential will change over time. Just think about it. How clothes were made in 11th century, let's say, in 15th century, in 18th century, in 21st century. It's all different, right? So the capacity or potential of a labor to do such work is changing. That capacity, that potential is changing, right? So FOP will change accordingly. Now, one more thing we need to understand here itself, that worker exchange their labor power with capitalist for a wage. So workers exchange their labor power with capitalist for a wage. Now, another term which looks like which is related to labor power is called labor. If this is labor power, then what is labor? Labor is nothing but actual application of labor power to add value to commodity. To add value to commodity. One more thing we need to understand here is something called labor power and surplus value. Is labor power and surplus value. Now, first we need to look at the definition of surplus value. What is surplus value? Surplus value is additional value produced by workers beyond value of their labor power represented by their wages. Represented by their wages means what? Means this. If I give this stuff that includes flour and cream and sugar worth, let's say, 50 rupees to someone who can make it a cake. Let's say he made it a cake. And now the value of this cake is, let's say, 500 rupees. To make this,
the wage paid was, let's say, 100 rupees. What was the amount of value added to the product? It was 450. And how much is being paid to the labor for this? He added value to a product worth rupees 450 and he is paid only 100 rupees. Now that difference of 450 and 100 is surplus value. Keep in mind one thing, this surplus value is very important concept, is very much needed. Without the existence of the surplus value, the whole capitalist system will collapse. Without this, the more the surplus value will be, the more the accumulation of money will be with the business owners, the more they will be investing in the economy, the more it will lead to more production. So this concept of surplus value is very much important, and how it is linked to labor power is the difference between how much they are getting paid for the skill they have versus like how much they are getting paid versus how much value they are creating with the skills they have. So I hope this is very much like, I hope this is clear. It's not very complicated, it's just like lots of small things here. So we all understand that this surplus value in the end will be source of profit. It will be source of profit. I hope we are clear till here. Now, the next thing that we need to understand is relations of production. Is relations of production. Make sure that you keep on taking notes. Now, we'll denote it with ROP. What is ROP? ROP is social relations found among people involved in process of production. Means what? When an individual is involved in process of production, they will form some relation, and those relations are called relations of production. Now, Karl Marx says, as a result of this, form two classes. What are those two classes? One will be called, as we discussed, bourgeois haves. What do they have? They have control over means of production. Control over means of production. And the others are proletariat, have-nots. What do they have? They have labor power. And what they don't have? Control over means of production. And they sell it for wages to capitalist. Right? So I hope we understand the meaning of ROP. Now come the more important part, which is this: forces of production which we did just before this point, and relation of production are strongly related. Are strongly related. Development of one will leads to growing contradiction with other. Read it carefully. Development in one will leads to growing contradiction. The more one of them will develop, there will be more contradiction with the other. How? We'll see that. For now, just note down this next line. You will understand this on your own when we'll be proceeding with Karl Marx. Just take this line down and mark this as later. As per Baltimore is name of a thinker. He says contradiction between two aspects of production acts as motor of history. Keep this line noted, you will understand it. Now, next. See, development of FOP often influence and conflict with existing ROP. Don't worry, we'll understand with this example. Now, with industrial revolution, it led to increase in productivity. It led to increase in productivity. So this increase in productivity is part of FOP. So FOP is in better position. FOP is developing here. But it led to more intensified exploitation of worker, which led to what? More social and political conflict. Just think about it in this way. We are all using technology day in, day out. We are able to do this class because of just technology. But this same technology is now applied on individuals by monitoring them, keeping them under CCTV camera. This is, if you look at it in a way, exploitation as well. Where development in FOP, the technology, is helping us in increasing our productivity. The same technology is used for the exploitation. And this is leading to more social and political conflict. Right? Now, there's one more line There are two more lines that you need to write here, but you will understand as we will be moving forward with the classes. Take these lines down as well, which is this. The contradiction between FOP and ROP accounts for history existing as succession of modes of production. The contradiction leads to necessary decline of one mode of production and its replacement by another. It means we talked about this contradiction. Now, this contradiction is the reason of the history, and how we just discussed how Karl Marx think about history. Karl Marx think about this history in terms of these modes of production, right? These modes of production. And the contradiction leads to necessary decline of one mode of production and its replacement by another. We'll look at it, how it works. We are going to look at it. One more thing, just take this down as well. That according to Karl Marx, each mode of production we'll look at it when we'll be doing the dialectic, the historical materialism, and the dialectic part of it, carries within it seeds of its own destruction. Each and every mode of production carries within it seeds of its own destruction. We can say this line is incomplete. We can add that this will stop when communism will be achieved. Anyways, now there is a controversy. There is an ongoing debate about this FOP. This will not be asked in exam, but it can be confusing for us as well, so we need to be clearing this right way. Till this point we have said that changes in F1P and ROP will go in detail in the next heading itself, the modes of production. The final topic will be here, which is mentioned in the syllabus. The changes in the FOP and ROP leads to change in history or change in mode of production. Mode of production basically is a way to Karl Marx's way of saying a phase of a history. Okay? Now, who will instigate this change? Whether FOP will instigate the change and it is going to ROP, or ROP is going to instigate this change and it change the FOP. Now this is a controversy. At places in his writing, Karl Marx has written that FOP take the primacy. At places he says it's the ROP that has the primacy. So we need to clear about this, that this has been, even Karl Marx was confused about it, in a way we can put it. I hope we are clear till this point. Now let's jump on to next point, the word, the topic which is mentioned in your syllabus, which is mode of production. Mode of production. Now, written in simplest way, mode of production is nothing but FOP plus ROP. No, don't get confused. Like, we started with means of production, simplest. Then we looked at forces of production, which is means of production plus labor power applied on it. Here. Now is ROP, which is a separate thing. When FOP and ROP are brought together, it makes mode of production. See, let me try to simplify it for you. FOP is means of production plus labor power. Don't get confused. No. Now be patient. Just try to understand this. While factors, just a second. Yeah. So while forces of production, or rather FOP, tells us how goods are produced, so this part is telling me how goods are produced. Adding ROP on that gives me one more detail. So then what does this part means? It means how goods are produced plus how they are distributed. How they are distributed. Bourgeois, the haves will have more resources. The distribution will be more towards the have class, and it will be less for have nots. I hope it makes sense to you, because the relationship while we are working is such that it is dividing the whole humankind into two parts: haves, have nots. The have nots will have less. The distribution will be skewed towards haves. They'll have more resources, they'll have abundance. And the have nots will have least amount of resources available with them because of the way this whole process works. Now we are going to move to the topic rather the part which will, you know, which it's starting to make sense for you how history is related to this modes of production. Now, according to Karl Marx, what is history? When we'll be studying Hegel's idea about history, it will make more sense. For right now, just try to understand as much as you can and try to make sense of it and try to remember it. It will make more sense when we'll be doing the Hegel part of history, and then you'll realize how these things are connected. Now, according to Karl Marx, human history progresses through various stages defined by different modes of production. Different modes of production. Read this line again. Human history progresses through various stages defined by different modes of production. Now, let's come back to this point. Remember these different phases. These are defined by different mode of production. Now, each stage is distinct, has distinct ways in which society organize production and distribute resources. Note these lines down. They'll make more sense when you just read it again. Each stage has distinct ways in which societies organize production and distribute resources. What did we learn here? How goods are produced, how they are distributed. Now what we are saying, distinct ways in which societies organize production, FOP, distribute resources, ROP. I hope this makes sense. Another line that we just did here, now it will make sense to you. Not completely, just a second. I think we did not wrote that. Okay, we can write it here. That FOP and ROP are strongly related. Hence, change in one lead to change in other. Eventually changing. Now, this statement will become more clear as we will progress. Mode of production. Now, one more thing is surplus as an important mode. Surplus is an important thing, important component of mode of production. Of mode of production. Do not confuse this with surplus value. This is different from surplus value. Surplus value was difference between the value added by a labor and the wages paid to him. Surplus is amount of production that exceeds what is necessary for immediate consumption. For immediate consumption. And it is really, so what is surplus? If we produce, let's say, 100 unit of wheat, present day consumption is 80, that 20 will be very important because it is essential for societal development and economic growth. When you will be studying economy, Indian economy, you will understand this thing, that savings are very important. Let's try to understand in this way. I am earning 10,000 rupees, let us say. My today's consumption is 8,000. I am left with 2,000. I will put this money into the bank. This bank will give me, let's say, 3% interest, 4% interest rate on to me. Now, 5 people like me put 2k in bank. Now bank has, let's say, 10k. Now there is a businessman who needs some money. He'll go to bank. He'll take this 10k, give bank some 10%, let's say. Now with this, he will, let's say he has some startup idea. He's building some new product. Without this 10k, if there was an absence of this 10k, this saving or this surplus, this startup could not survive. And with this startup, it will ignite growth in economy. So that's why surplus is an important component for any mode of production. Otherwise, there will not be any growth. Now, in capitalistic mode of production, which we'll study in detail, this surplus is called profit. This surplus is called profit. Now, how this profit is generated? This profit is generated through exploitation of worker. How? They are paid less. than the value they are adding. To a commodity in production process. I am making a thing that was worth 100 rupees into 500, doing a value addition of 400. I am getting only 100 rupees. This 300, the difference of this 400 and 100 is what surplus is. And this is at the cost of exploitation of worker. Because ideally, I am the one who has made this, who has created this value. I know it will make some, like it may raise some question in your mind, but this is the theory. That's how Karl Marx explained this whole system. Right? So this profit is coming at the exploitation of worker. Now, one more thing we need to understand here is that FOP and ROP, they are not static. We are saying the contradiction among them leads to change in the mode of production. But even within a given mode of production, they are not static. They are not static. How? For example, exploitation, if you look at ROP part, in 19th century is different from 21st century, and they fall under the same capitalistic mode of production, right? Now, I hope it makes sense till this point. Let's quickly look at these terms. First, we did means of production. Means of production are nothing but things that are used for production process. Then we looked at forces of production, ways in which material goods are produced. And then we looked at that forces of production can also be equated with means of production plus labor power. And then we looked at relations of production, mode of production. Now, till this point, we have understood one thing, that Karl Marx divides the whole history into phases and he distinguishes between them on the basis of mode of production. Karl Marx talks about 4 mode of production till now, and now we are going to study each of them in bit of detail and what are the characteristic feature of these 4 modes of production. First, let's look at what are these 4 mode of production. 4 modes of production. Do not write MOP, you will get confused as means of production. So write full mode of production. Now, the first is called primitive communal mode of production. Primitive communal mode of production. The second one is called ancient mode of production. Third one is called feudal mode of production. And the last one, the present one, is capitalistic mode of production. Fourth one is called capitalistic mode of production. Let's start with the first one, that is primitive mode of production or primitive communal mode of production. Now, let's look at this part. Now, this is in the early stages of human history. This is time of early stages of human history. In this mode of production, means of production, things used for production, means of production were owned communally. What does that mean? There is this piece of land. 50 people live in this area. This land does not belong to any individual. This belongs to everyone. Not even a single individual can claim, oh, this part is mine. No, it belongs equally to everyone. Now, because means of resources were owned communally, will there be any class? No. No social class. No social class. Social classes are formed based on haves and have-nots. Some have a lot, others have nothing. But here, in this case, everyone, no one individually owns anything. Collectively, everyone owns everything. So there will be no social class. Now, if we talk about level of forces of production means how things are produced. It will be low. Why? Basic tools were used, like sticks, like stones. Right? ROP was communal based. Tools and resources were collectively owned and shared among community rather than privately owned. We discussed it. ROP क्या था? Communal based था. Relation कैसा था? Communal based था. कम्युनिटी की तरह सब लोग रहते थे, कलेक्टिवली ओन करते थे, इंडिविजुअल प्राइवेटली ओन कुछ भी नहीं था. अच्छा, सोशल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कैसा होगा फिर इस टाइम पे? फैमिली रिलेशंस के ऊपर बेस्ड था. मतलब क्या? एक क्लैन विल फॉर्म द बेसिस ऑफ सोशल यूनिट. अब तो हम सिटी के हिसाब से रहते हैं ना, कि ये सिटी है, सिटी में अलग अलग लोग रहते हैं. इवन हाई क्लास लोगों की अलग रहने की जगह है, लो क्लास लोगों की अलग रहने की जगह है. उस टाइम पे ऐसा नहीं था. एक एक्सटेंडेड फैमिली के लोग एक साथ रहते थे. वही एक सोशल यूनिट था, वही एक सोशल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन था. इसीलिए यही लोग मिलकर इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी करते होंगे, हंटिंग करना, गैदरिंग करना. तो इकोनॉमिक और जो एक्टिविटीज थी वो सोशल एक्टिविटीज के साथ इंटरट्वाइंड थी. राइट? अब एक बात बताओ, इंडिविजुअल प्रॉपर्टी कुछ है नहीं ना, किसी कोई इंडिविजुअल कुछ हो नहीं करता. कम्युनली कलेक्टिवली सब ओन करते हैं। क्या एक इंडिविजुअल किसी दूसरे इंडिविजुअल का एक्सप्लॉइटेशन कर पाएगा? नहीं कर पाएगा। प्रिमिटिव कम्युनल मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन में ना हिस्ट्री के इस फेज में एक्सप्लॉइटेशन ऑफ ह्यूमन बाय ह्यूमन does not exist. Tools were pretty simple, could be reproduced by anyone. Anyone, मेरे पास जो टूल है वही दूसरा बंदा भी टूल बना सकता है. तो I do not have anything special which I can count as my private property. Hence, there was no master, no servant, all equal in this time. अब हुआ क्या? Gradually, people perfected tools. Some people, some sharper mind people perfected tools, and those perfected started having surplus. Everyone is fighting with stick. I have AK-47. Let's say I have this private property. These don't. Creation of class. Creation of class. Are you getting how classes are getting created? Now, this is beginning of private property. Till the point everyone was having same things, there was no private property, because some people perfected tools. If you look at it in a way, it is indicating towards meritocracy. Those who have merits will rule, will be successful. Now, after this mode of production, after this primitive communal mode of production, transition happened from classless to class society. So there were no classes only in primitive communal mode of production. Now, come back to the point that we discussed some time ago. Here, no social class. Social class is here. What will happen here eventually? We'll discuss that too. So here, we'll discuss that too. But now, because some people perfected some tools, so there will be development in FOP. Development in FOP will lead to changes in ROP. And when there will be change in FOP and ROP, what will change? Mode of production. What will change? Mode of production. And this mode of production ends here, marking the beginning of another mode of production, the second mode of production, which is ancient mode of production. Which is ancient mode of production. Let's look at this now. Now, this society was also used to known as, or is also known as, slavery owning society. Why? The significant portion of the labor was performed by slaves. Who were slaves? Okay, in this case, two classes formed: masters, slaves. Now, these masters used to have complete control over their labor and their life. Complete control over their labor and lives. Right? All the production of this slave, all the production of this slave used to belong to master only. Slaves, keep in mind, slaves were deprived of their own means of production. Slaves were deprived of their own means of production. Means what? They did not have control over any means of production. They were working on these resources which were owned by masters. Right? Now, after this or during this ancient mode of production, bronze and iron tools replaced the old stone and wooden tools. Discovery happened. Humans have this habit of continuously trying to discover something, to improve, to innovate, to make our lives better. Therefore, there is shift in FOP. Now, these metals, these bronze and iron, allowed for more efficient agricultural practice, mining and production for more durable tools and weapons. ज़्यादा अच्छे टूल्स वेपन्स मिल गए, अब मैं एग्रीकल्चर अच्छे से कर पाऊंगा, ज़्यादा एफिशिएंट तरीके से कर पाऊंगा, माइनिंग कर पाऊंगा और अच्छी प्रोडक्शन कर पाऊंगा. अब इससे क्या हुआ? इससे लार्ज स्केल पे होने लगी एग्रीकल्चर, स्टॉक रेजिंग. एग्रीकल्चर होने लगा लार्ज स्केल पे, स्टॉक रेजिंग होने लगी, माइनिंग होने लगी. अब इसके लिए ना, अभी तक क्या था कि एक मास्टर उसका स्लेव काम कर रहा है. नाउ वी नीड मोर organized labor. We need more because now it's going to happen at large scale. Till now it wasn't that organized because of master slave relation. Now, in this ancient mode of production, slaveholders have complete control, absolute control over both means of production and slave themselves. Slaves were exploited to produce surplus for their masters. And after this, slaves were given bare minimum. Slaves were given bare minimum. Now, Because of this development in the productive forces, in the FOP, now FOP increased. Also, slaves were given bare minimum, therefore exploitation. Also, FOP developed. Obviously, with the time, forces of production will develop. Now, demand also increased. Why demand increased? Population is also rising. Now, with this increasing demand, because of increasing population, are slave any interested in producing more, to work harder? No. Why not? They'll still get the same bare minimum. Change in FOP. Now we have this ability to produce more. We have demand. Demand is also rising, but laborers are not ready to produce more. Laborers are not ready to put in more effort. Why? Because they'll still get the same amount of resources. They'll get bare minimum. Now, this conflict between FOP and ROP, existing ROP, led to another mode of production, the third mode of production, which is called feudal mode of production. Feudal mode of production. Right? Now, in feudal mode of production, landlords, obviously time passed, agriculture has improved a lot now. Now, landlords or landholders provide land to tenants in exchange for their loyalty and service. Means what? Means feudal lords granted their lands to tenants in exchange for military or other services and loyalty, that you will be loyal to me, you will serve me, you will help me whenever I need you. Now, this forms the social and economic structure. So, I'll give you my piece of land to work on, but you'll be loyal towards me. You'll be loyal towards me. Now, these feudal lords exploited their tenants or serfs just as capitalists exploit workers. Now, these serfs were obligated to work on the land provided by the lord and provide them various services. And in return, they received protection and right to use their land for their own subsistence. Now, in feudalism, I'll provide you this piece of land, right? I'll take some portion of your production. When we say some, it's going to be more, a lot. And they will not be given enough. They'll not be given enough as per their labor. Right? One more thing, one more characteristic feature of feudal mode of production was serfs. So serfs are basically, the have nots. Serfs were legally unfree. They were bound to work on the land like the provided by their lords. They had no personal freedom, no property rights, right? Another characteristic feature of this time is they were obliged to surrender their labor over and above their subsistence. They'll be given only what is needed for their subsistence. Rest it will be given to Lord. During this time only, people started to use inanimate sources of energy like like water, water mills use होने लगी, है ना? So inanimate means sources of power other than human and animal. Inanimate means other than humans and animals. New machines were invented that increase the productivity. Now, because of this improvement in technology, started this specialization. As more specialized machines are coming, more specialized techniques are coming, only some people can do this, only some people can do this, only some people can do this, only other. And hence, because they are specialized, it's simple, right? Just think about it. What if you ask a singer to do engineering? He'll mess it up, right? Or she'll mess it up. But he or she can be really good at music because of this specialization. Before this era, before this phase of history, everyone used to do everything. Now they are doing only some certain portion, certain tasks. Hence, they are getting practiced. They are getting used to it, and productivity increases. Now, new discoveries were made, increase in demand and consumption because of colonialism and because of population increase. Hence, there is more demand being created. Now, all this because of this colonialism, population explosion, there was a need of mass scale manufacturing. Why? Population growth happened plus colonialism, hence mass scale manufacturing was needed. Factory system. Now in factory system, let's say this is master, this is slave, this is piece of land. Now this slave, rather this serf, is bound to this land only, but in factory system, and another will be bound to this, and another will be bound to this piece of land. What does factory need? That all these workers come at one place. Now there is a change in the way things are produced. It will ask for the change in relation of production, and when there will be change in the FOP and ROP, it will lead to a new mode of production. I hope now you are understanding how Karl Marx is looking at history. How Karl Marx is looking at history. Now comes the present day capitalistic mode of production. The present day capitalistic mode of production. In capitalistic mode of production, the most significant factor of production is capital. That is, wealth in the form of money. And in capitalism, means of production such as factories, land, machinery are privately owned by individuals or corporations. In this mode of production, majority of population, that is proletariat or working class, does not have significant capital, but instead they sell their labor in return for wages. Now, what are the features of capitalism? You have heard this name before, you are hearing this name again, Baltimore. Now, Baltimore says in capitalism, goods are produced for sale rather than for own use. This production is done, like if you go past in the history, production was done for self consumption. Now it's for sale. Hence, this production is now profit oriented. Goods are produced for mainly exchange in the market rather than for personal consumption. And labor power is bought and sold in the market, and we know that it is bought and sold in the market. Private sector people are selling their labor, and they are sold openly in the market. Now, this relationship of selling the wages, buying the labor power. This is characterized by a contractual agreement. A contractual agreement rather than any obligation or coercion, which existed in the past in ancient mode of production and in feudal mode of production. Now, Karl Marx says that this capitalism or capitalistic mode of production is a historic phase. Why it's a historic phase? Because according to him, this will be replaced by what he called socialistic mode of production or socialism. How? He says that, just note this line down and you will understand it when we will be moving forward, that there are contradictions and inherent conflicts within capitalism. What are those? We will understand. Such as class struggle, such as exploitation, and it will lead to its downfall. Now, what is going to be this contradiction? Karl Marx says capitalists want to accumulate wealth. They'll be accumulating more wealth, more wealth. They'll try to produce more production, more production, more production. Overproduction will be there. And at times there's going to be no employment at all because there's already overproduction has happened. Now, because they'll be exploiting more employees, they'll be exploiting more and more and more. They'll exploit employees more. They'll give them less money, less money, less money. They will not have money to buy, but they are producing a lot. Overproduction. Now there is overproduction. They are firing people. People are unemployed also. Now, this will lead to something called class struggle. Karl Marx calls it class struggle. We'll discuss class struggle in detail. Don't worry. Now, due to this exploitation and due to this struggle, he says that there will be collective action from proletariat and they will overthrow the system of capitalism and a new mode of production called socialism will be put into place. In this case, there will be public ownership of, not communal, public ownership. Workers will collectively control production and distribute based on needs rather than profits. सब मिलके काम करेंगे. Now Karl Marx says that socialism is a transitioning phase. It will eventually culminate into communism. The basic difference is that in socialism there will still be some state, the government machinery, but in communism there will be no government machinery as well. Right? State apparatus will become unnecessary. True communism would emerge. Communism would represent a classless society where all means of production are collectively owned and social relations are based on cooperation and abundance rather than competition and scarcity, which is the case today in the capitalist system. We are all competing in the exam. There is a scarcity of the position of IAS and IPS. सोशलिज्म में ये सब खत्म हो जाएगा, सब बराबर, कोई आईएएस नहीं, कोई लाल नीली पीली बत्ती नहीं, कोई मंत्री नहीं, कोई नेता नहीं, सब बराबर हो जाएगा, ऐसा मार्क्स का कहना है. एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग ऑब्जर्वेशन इसके बाद कार्ल मार्क्स कह देते हैं, वो ये है कि कम्युनिज्म विल बी एंड ऑफ हिस्टोरिकल डेवलपमेंट. Historical development. Why? Because everyone is equal. There will be no classes. Because there will be no classes, there will be no contradiction. Because there will be no contradiction, there will be no change in mode of production. Because there will be no change in mode of production, there will be no history. Because in this state there would be no private property, no class distinction. Individuals would freely contribute according to their abilities, receive according to their needs. Once communism is established, history would cease to progress in terms of social and economic system, as humanity would have achieved its most equitable and harmonious form of organization. Now we will keep this video till here and we'll continue from here in the next video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, Kindly like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video to the fellow UPSC aspirants, and not just the fellow UPSC aspirants, anyone who is interested in knowing. Look, sociology is a subject which, of course, has play an important role in your UPSC journey, but in a way everyone should study this sociology subject because it gives you a way of looking at society. I'm nearly sure anyone who hasn't read about the Karl Marx, who do not know about anything about Marxism, who is reading the Marxism for first time, I'm pretty sure this has given you a fresh perspective to look at the society, to look at the history, to look at how things can be. So yeah, just study, read, and God bless you. Best of luck. If you need anything from my end, put it down in the comment section, and I'll definitely get it for you guys if it's possible. Also visit my website called www.hexaias.com. That, like, this platform is just for sociology optional. Everything, anything which is required by aspirants in the journey of sociology optional, it will be provided by Hexa IAS. Thank you very much for watching. God bless you.